By way of introduction, I am one of the civilian leaders here at ServiceNow, and my team works with a handful of customers, transportation, USDA, Interior, and the Postal Service. So we're here today to meet these two fine folks that are going to share their transformation efforts beyond IT. So I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself, Terry and Veronica, and then we'll get started.
I'm Terry Carpenter. I'm the CIO and CTO at the National Science Foundation, where we distribute monies through grants to advance science for the betterment of the United States and citizens.
Hello, I'm Veronica Brown, and I'm the branch chief for the Project Management Office in the Food and Nutrition Services OIT department. And basically, most people know us by the programs that we service, which are women, infants, and children, school lunch, SNAP, formerly known as food stamps. And so we basically are the nutrition programs for all of USDA.
Awesome. Thank you first and foremost for your service. We appreciate it and your passion toward transformation. For those in the audience, we have a fun starter question. So let's show raise of hands for those folks in the room that are part of the IT department. Okay.
Oh my.
And then go ahead and put your hands down. And who is part of the mission or Okay, so you're both. Okay. You cloned yourself. That's good. Well, I love that there's so many here from the IT area, but also happy to see a ton of mission folks in here as well. The reason for the question is, as we look at our customers, we want to ensure that the Now platform can go beyond IT, especially as it relates to the enterprise, as all of you are here to serve the mission. And so what we found is 56% of our customers use our platform beyond IT, which is super critical. We're all here to serve the mission, and we want to learn a little bit about how to partner with the mission and go beyond IT. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So looking at one of the first questions that a lot of folks ask is, what is the right approach? So I'd love to hear from you, Terry and Veronica, about your approach to modernization as it relates to the mission, and how do you engage with the mission?
Head first down the rope. Now, really, it depends, right? Your culture is a big part of that. And I think you have to make those risk-based determinations to figure out where you can get a foothold, where you can start to really make a difference with that transformation, and really use the latest guidance coming out from the administration. There's a tremendous amount of energy coming out of President Biden's administration on really advancing some of the policies that we have and telling us, get on with it, get there. Remember who we serve. We serve the American people. And that's the important part of why are we doing the digital experience. Now it's up to us to figure out how to make that plan happen, how to get that foothold, how to get people rallied behind it, because it's not as simple as, well, this is the right technology, so we're just going to do it. It's about getting business and IT together and really thinking about what makes a difference, what's the right thing to do, and then working it together.
So from that perspective, to build on it, I'm given that order. Like you just told me, okay, Veronica, go ahead and do that. Then I'm sitting there saying, well, how do I do that? Like, what do I implement and how do I go about implementing it? So we tend to work as a team, looking at, we need to do modernization, but we need to do it enterprise, because too many times we start going off and different groups will go in different directions. And before you know it, you've got like 5 different tools across the platform and everybody's doing something different. And there's no cost savings in that, and everybody's doing a different process, and there's no uniformity, and it's just kind of hodgepodge and a bit reckless. So now we have to have somebody be that point of contact of who's going to start initiating the best fit for us as an enterprise solution instead of these separate solutions, and how are we going to meet that need. And so we have to start talking to like our enterprise architect. We have to start talking to the individuals who manage our platform. We have to start looking at cost. We have to start looking at support. So it's not just this one easy answer of one thing fits all. We also have to take into context, how do you support this in the out years? That full system development life cycle of, the cost and the maintenance and who's going to manage this. And, once you get it configured, whatever your choice is, then you have to look at maintaining it. And that's another challenge that you're dealing with. There's so many. The other is, what tools can we get that people can use that is, at the very least, customer friendly and intuitive? Because nobody likes change. Change management is very difficult. And getting people to use a tool, no matter how awesome, can be very challenging if they don't see the cost benefit of that tool. So that's something that we've been working on at our agency for a while. And we're looking at, I call it like a glorified paper process, where we're a paperless office, but we treat our documents like they're still paper. We just use email to send them instead of walking them and dumping them into an inbox, right? Now they're in our digital inbox, our email, and now they're just in there. And I don't know about you, but by the end of the day, I've lost whatever got to me that morning. It's like, well, I don't know where that document went. So how do we manage those taskings? How do we leverage tools so that everybody will buy into that tool? And then, we can start looking at not just, having a digital form, but managing that form, knowing where it is, knowing where it's going to go, and knowing how it's going to get there. I'd love to say that we're very mature and we've solved all these problems, but we haven't. We're still working on it.
Well, it sounds like you're really considering all those key impactful factors, which is a great start. So, and I know, Terry, you had shared a little bit about how you make a really strong focus on creating that partnership between the mission and getting them on board. Can you give us kind of your journey to modernizing and working with the mission areas to ensure that you all are on the same page and you get them onboarded quickly?
Yeah, I think it's really an interesting dynamic that's occurred in NSF with, there's the mission of delivering your service to the constituency of your agency. Then there's the mission support functions. In the business world, we would call it more the, business G&A functions. That would be your HR, your contracting, your operational activities. And those, I wonder how many people here didn't raise their hand because maybe they fell into one of those categories of functions. And what we're finding is there's tremendous value in those areas of mission support. And HR is a classic example. You saw the demo today. We've been building out as fast as we can in the HR area because, let's face it, in the federal government, HR processes are challenging. Right? I'm on camera. So they're challenging. So we're trying to figure out how to use the tool. As Veronica said, it's not just making the paper happen in the tool, but changing the experience for the employee who's trying to do their job and backfill against vacancies that they have or growth opportunities they may have, and not making it so hard that they want to just run away screaming, right? They're not a Navy SEAL. And while I appreciate what those people have to go through for that mission, we shouldn't make every employee have to do that kind of stuff to get simple successes.
I hope not.
So that partnership was really critical. Having the lead executive, the champion of the HR function, want to make those kind of changes, and then send the right people to participate in the design, in the thinking about how do we configure that experience, not just that piece of paper that we were doing last time, and get people out of email. God, I love to hear that.
Yeah, email, what a disaster.
Bless you.
And we have tools that are helpful, things that allow us to get out of email and at least have a repository for our documents and allow us to collaborate. But, after you've built, like, for example, Teams, and you've put all your files into Teams and everything's working great, then where do you put the documents then, and how do you get them there? So, because it's not exactly the easiest thing to drag and drop, 500 documents in one afternoon or whatever to get things properly filed. So instead of having to go to a file cabinet and file everything that's been stacking up on your desk, now they're all in your Teams folders, which is, great because now people know where they are, but the people who really need to get in there can't have access, or that's not a place that you want to keep something for the next, records management required length of time. You got to put it somewhere that will be there, 5 years after the application that you built is gone, because those are our record management's requirements. So a Teams folder is not it. Well, where do you put it and how do you get it there? Because I just spoke to one of my vendors, and they're like, we're sorry, but these forms that we have for access requests, there's a lot of them. They have some, they have some PII. We need to put them somewhere and that is secure and safe so our people's information isn't released. And we don't want to do it individually because there's a lot of them.
Right.
That could take X number of hours. Yes, time hours. And I was like, well, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have time to do this. So how do we then make that happen? He has a nice dandy tool. I can't wait until he shows it to me next week. But, it's that challenge of how do we use the tools that we have and leverage them in a way that will help us, meet our need without having to change the way we do everything.
Yeah, exactly. And let me ask the question to you all. How many of you know, if you pick up your phone right now, which channel and which app to use to reach your family? Like this, right? How many of you think your employees in your agency know where to put this file? Should they go to Teams? Should they go to ServiceNow? Should they go to this? Oh my God, we're overwhelming them. We've got to help them. We've got to help them understand what is the right tool for the right purpose that we're using. And then make sure that your governance process helps to slot those requirements to Teams where it's appropriate, and to ServiceNow where it's appropriate, and to whatever tool you might have.
Yeah. Or SharePoint.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's so many apps out there.
Yeah.
Can you share with us on your journey to modernize and help the mission side of the house? Can you give us an example, maybe a project that you're working on right now or a use case that you're looking to modernize with your mission areas?
Well, this was it's on the ServiceNow platform. It's Tasker. So what happened is we were looking at, when you have a task that needs to be done, whether it's the branch chief needs to tell their staff members, okay, this is a task I need you to do. How do you know they do it? You send them an email and then, you're like, okay, you need to tell me when it's done. Then hopefully they send you an email back that says, oh yeah, I finished that. Or say you get a data call, the infamous data call. And it comes from your ACIO, and then it has to go down to the directors who send it to the branch chiefs who send it to their staff. And then that information is supposed to be gathered from the staff, and then it has to go back up to the ACIO who then sends it to department. Well, that's a series of emails. So can you use something that would, instead of doing it through email, would then have a tasker that would trigger these tasks in this preset sequence. And then as it's finished, you could monitor how it's being finished because you can see it, and then the document or whatever information is then through the system sent back up to the ACIO and gathered. It's a great tool. It's amazing. But we're finding that when we share that tool with different mission areas so that they can manage and monitor the tasks that people have to do, some mission areas embrace it and they just run with it. They're so happy to have this available and done. Other missions are like, we're too busy. We have so many tasks that we don't have time to learn how to have less tasks. And sadly to say, OIT is one of them. So we got so busy. We were like ready to roll it out, and then the AI initiative came in, and we're like, okay, we don't have time for this right now. And other mission areas have said that to us as well. So we've got this like dichotomy within our own agency of those who embrace the technology and this is the best thing since sliced bread, and then those who are like, you know what, get back to me in 6 months. Yeah. So that's the challenge that we're facing right now.
So first I'd like to introduce you to Jeremy. Jeremy, I'd love to talk to you about your Tasker tool. What's the overlay?
A real life example.
Yeah, it's a plug-in to ServiceNow.
Right.
So tell us, Terry, a little bit about maybe top projects that I know your team's here that you're focused on delivering for the mission. So
back to the point of you got to get traction. You got to get the drone up there and see what it can tell you, and then know that you're going to be able to constantly improve it. So for us, obviously IT, we wanted to eat our own dog food. IT was the obvious place to start. And then we got the partner in HR, and they were all in. Let's do as much as we can because it's so broken and we want to fix it so badly. So that's been a real win. Now all of a sudden we're starting to see others see the value in the ability to be adaptable. I think there's some interesting dialogue happening in some of the books I've been reading about the old days of being efficient think like a factory line. We're trying to make the process more efficient, make the paper flow faster. That isn't the way we need to be anymore today. We don't know what these business models are going to evolve to for each agency. And we're experiencing that in the grant business. We're experimenting with new ways of getting money out to ecosystems to really advance science for harder problems. Think climate, think alternate power. And to do that takes partnerships, international, takes partnerships with industry and academic institutions, which means our systems aren't built for that. So how do we be more adaptable so that the mission can figure out what that process is? So our next step after what we've been successful with in IT and HR is understanding how the mission can use this to have a more adaptable front end that can plug into systems of record that exist, that you don't have to throw away or break or make them more brittle by trying to cram more changes into them. But you can really think about what that new mission workflow needs to be and then evolve and figure out where you want to go from there. But it really comes down to that value paradigm. What is the value that your agency is willing to take on, and then that amount of risk that goes with that value, that trade space, and figuring out how to move quickly into those and show real success.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know, Veronica, you have a very unique use case talking about sharing, funding and monitoring it and quality. Can you share with us a little bit about the process that you went through to make sure that you were aligned on the delivery of the QCS system?
So it's funny you should ask that because the QCS guy is down there. So Alex, if I get anything wrong, so we have a system, it's a quality control system for the program. And that one is challenging because it has a lot of PII in it. And it's not our PII, it's state PII. So states gather the personally identifiable information of the customers or the clients who come in to get SNAP benefits, food stamps. And so they have to gather all this documentation. And I once said it's like trying to apply for a mortgage. You have to give them your documents about your job, what is my income, what are my bank accounts, and it's all very personal. Of course, we also demand their health records, but hey, whatever. And then we have to, the federal side then looks at their documents and says, okay, we're going to pool a sub, group of that and see what is the quality of your process. Did you do this timely? Did you give them the proper amount of fund, of food stamp benefit? I keep calling it food stamps, it's SNAP. Did they get the right amount of benefit? Not too much, not too little, is everything correct? What is your quality control number? Error rate, positive rate, all kinds of rates. And it's kind of mind-numbing because I'm not really a statistician, but we have to share that information from the state system to our system. And what we're trying to build right now is a modernized version of that system that will allow us to work more interactively with the states and allow them to get into our system. Before we had like a firewall. You couldn't get in. You just sent us stuff email, and then we put it in. Now we have a new rule coming out that says not only are they supposed to send us that information and get it into the system. No. Now they have to actually have an account into the system, and they're going to do their quality control in the one we built, not the one that they built. We don't trust them. We want it in ours, right? And we've never done that before. And we have all this PII. I mean, how frightening. I mean, our ATO, we're gonna have to redo that one. But we have to have a way of making that happen. So what's it called again? The PD, I forget what the name of the plugin you're gonna use for that. ServiceNow. The doc generator.
Oh, doc generator.
Yeah, doc generator. So they're working on doc generator to allow for that sharing of information through documents that they can now easily transfer back and forth. And they have a lot of very specific documents they have to fill out because we're bureaucrats, so we have to have our documents, right? And it has to be on this form, filled out this way, in order for it to be acceptable. So we're using this doc generator as a way of easily and quickly developing documents that can then be shared back and forth instead of having to separately build in each document into the system. And of course, the documents can vary slightly because we allow variance, because it's 50 states and 2 territories. So we allow them to vary a little bit. But that variance, that can cause you to have 50 different, slightly variable documents. And I mean, talk about the mayhem that would cause. So instead of programming each individual document with its variance hard programmed into the system, we're using doc generator to give us flexibility to share back and forth these documents so that they're auto-filled and just everything's simpler.
So how much time have you saved being able to do that? Have you quantified that?
We haven't quantified that yet. We're not that mature yet.
We're gonna get there.
It's still being built.
Yeah.
We have a year left
Okay.
before we have any type of metrics to really share.
Something to help the mission see the outcomes of the work your team's
It's
doing.
really huge because poor Alex, he started building the system with the vendors, and then right when he was building it, I think 6 months in, Congress said, all right, we need to have a new rule. And so now we have an interim rule that is ready to be turned into a final rule. And, it's always hard when you're building a system and then Congress, or, there's a new law.
Yeah.
A new rule.
That happens.
Then
though,
it changes everything.
every day, right?
Every day, yeah.
Terry, I know, speaking of rules, the president's management agenda, there's mandates all around. Share with us a little bit about how that has maybe pushed you into quicker modernization or transformation. How does that impact how you prioritize and make decisions around those mandates?
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of inflection points happening today around the world, in our United States, in our government, and in our agencies, and it's all coming together at the same time. Technology has evolved to this incredible inflection point. So you're weighing exactly what Veronica was talking about, as well as trying to figure out how to incorporate AI into this. We have an executive order saying it's time to get on with it, figure out the fears, manage the risk, and get after AI, and do it in a safe, fair, and open way that you can really support wherever it evolves to. So everything we're doing is trying to do all those same things and figure out how do you create the architecture that gives you that adaptability, as well as then connects this data, because to really do AI well, if you're going to do it behind your firewall, you want to have good data sources that are tagged and you can really add them in quickly without having to go do all that work from the unstructured data. So these tools, I think, are important to us because of the embedded capability. When I talk about AI, I always talk about it in terms of there's public AI. I can go out in the public and I can use ChatGPT or like. There's private AI, and I can subdivide that into tools that are embedded in, so AI is embedded in ServiceNow, the Assist, the Copilot tools. They're all great tools, but what data are they going after? And what do you want to accomplish with that tool is an important part of your thought process. And then if you actually have a mission where you might need to do predictive analytics or some sort of real simulation, think weather, think climate, think all these kinds of really crazy computational nightmares, you need the kind of tools that then allow you to take your own models and really build out your own algorithms. So we're segmenting our use cases against that kind of framework in our governance process, and then using a risk-based approach, just like in cyber, to think about which ones bring the best value, not the highest ROI, as you heard earlier. Because I'm not sure the highest dollar return on investment really is the advantage here. And I heard a colleague today talk about how do you quantify the value, and it is hard. And somebody said, well, here's a simple way to do it. I thought, that is really ingenious. Look at your total payroll. If it touches every employee, then take your total payroll and say, just a return of 10 hours a year equates to this dollar value. That is
at a minimum, and that
10
is
hours
very
per person
conservative.
a year.
Yeah.
Like,
very
That's
low
real.
number, just 10 hours, right? And so it sounds like, National Science Foundation, I can imagine AI is going to be an incredible tool for all of you. Do you already have a framework set? It sounds like you're modeling it after cyber. Share with us, how did you get started? I think a lot of people there's so many terms we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier, Veronica. How do you get started? Because there's RPA, ML, AI, now Gen AI, to ensure that not just you all understand it, but your constituents, your customers or employees understand it, and how you want it defined.
Yeah, so we, being the National Science Foundation, you can imagine we have a lot of very smart people in the subject matter of AI. In fact, we've
These
been
fine
investing.
gentlemen here.
Well, we've got people that have a lot of years in academia who have actually built the stuff that has now translated to industry, that is now translating to our ability to deploy it.
Very cool.
So if you think about this, they've been investing. I did my work in 1996, and a lot of that work was funded by NSF, and here we are today just applying some of that stuff.
Wow.
So that was NSF investments.
Wow.
So the research side of our mission, our core mission, is to do that kind of forward look and invest outwards so that when we get here today, we can say, look at what we did 30 years ago, 40 years ago in investments in AI and how we got here. Inside of NSF, we are doing it as incorporating into our governance process where we're thinking about what are the use cases, how do we categorize them? We did a survey and said, okay, we're going to go into this custom AI behind the firewall. So we're actually going to take a model and build a model against a large language model and some other algorithms to do something innovative behind the firewall that is not embedded in one of these great data set tools that we have in place. And we found 79 use cases without even trying.
Wow.
From that, we narrowed it down and found 9 business value propositions. And then we narrowed it down to 2 that we really liked. And one is simply, if you want to submit a proposal to NSF, because our motto is, we want to hear every idea out there. It doesn't matter who you are, we want to hear your idea. Well, do you know how to get the idea to the right person to actually get it considered? What are we currently investing in? What are the areas we're asking for investments in? So if we can create an internal chat function that looks against all of the old history of proposals, the descriptions that we have for the new requests for proposals, and you can see where your idea fits, we can have that assist really help guide people to where to go and even how to write the proposal, how to make sure it follows the guidelines that we publish against writing of proposal requests.
That's awesome.
So I think this is a big area for us to think about how do you really implement it beyond making life easier for the employees and people just doing your basic workflows. Let's get after some of the really cool stuff too.
I love it.
So
Thanks for sharing.
we have completely the opposite experience because when we're working through our stuff and we have a relatively small OIT department, all things considered, and our mission is focused on food benefits. That's where all of our efforts are. So we touch the lives of so many of people in America. Figure, every child below the age of 5 could potentially, below a certain level can get WIC benefits or all school lunches, kids who are doing school lunches. And also all the SNAP beneficiaries, which are like 45 million. So, we have a lot of people that we interact with. However, when it comes to OIT, we're just starting to do modernization, and then you throw AI at us, and we're like, okay, well, how do we integrate the two? What are we doing? And then you start giving us different definitions of AI, and we're like, well, we do chat GPT, we do these things. Oh, that's AI? Oh, okay. I mean, if that's what you want to call it, go for it. But now we're focusing on, okay, where could generative AI go? How could we take all this data that we actually touch, or we could potentially touch, and use it to our benefit in order to more effectively get out all the benefits that we have for the people in the US. And so we have to partner with our program, but we have to first teach them or help them to understand what we're actually doing, because sometimes, that what they think AI is and what we're talking about isn't actually what's going on. And they start thinking about, their latest science fiction movie, not about, okay, what is actually feasible and how can we actually turn that into something productive. So not only are we having to switch over from modernization focus, stop, restructure, and then go into AI, but then we also have to look at what are our current skill sets and how do we upskill people so that they can then take the lead with AI when they were really more focused on other areas.
Thank you. That's impactful. And I feel like, Terry, you have a pretty good foundation based on what you shared, but also with the amount of data at NSF, it's got to be really meticulous how you're going to be using that data. And then all the mandates that are going to come around as it relates to how you're using that data. And are you following the rules that they're going to, start continuously adding to the list of rules that they already put out?
Well, I was going to say we serve a lot of socially disadvantaged people. So when we use AI and they say, okay, you need it to be transparent, you need it to be, not have bias, that's really critical for us because if we're not careful, then we can put bias in any USDA program that could have really negative real world consequences for people who don't have ways to protect themselves.
Right.
So that's why we have to be very, very cautious about how we, leverage AI and then how we institute it.
Such a great point. I personally didn't think about that because it's an aggregation of similar data that continues.
Yes.
So it starts to create the biases without you even trying. So we do have a few minutes for audience questions. If anybody has a question for Terry and Veronica. Question? No? All right, well then we will leave with one last question. If you were to leave this audience with one advice as it relates to mission transformation, what would it be?
Be flexible. Really, because once you start going down a path, you never know, okay, do we have to reposition ourselves? This action is not getting us where we need to go. Maybe it's not even because of something you did, but because one of the partners you're working with didn't work out. How do we pull back, retrench, and then find another path to get to where we have to go? Things don't always go as smoothly as you want them to. So how do I stay on task even though, I didn't get to where I wanted to go and whatever I wanted delivered by September didn't get to me on time? It's now a year later. So how do we stay focused? How do we stay flexible? And how do we stay optimistic?
Thank you so much.
Who remembers when the ATM first happened and tellers went away? Yeah, right? Be a good partner, right? I think it builds on exactly what she's saying, which is get involved early with your customer. Get involved early on that strategic decision-making process of deciding to do stuff and how to do it. And really engage in that thing. And don't just wait until the requirement shows up on your doorstep. Because I think the conversations happen early are really the most important to help us get to a better place as a total ecosystem that will help support what we need in the future of federal agencies, in the federal government. And really lean into that. Remember, we're a service business. We're providing a service. And just like that ATM, your businesses are getting smarter and smarter with technology. Every one of them has a cell phone. Every one of them knows how to use the common tools that you're going to find on that cell phone. So it's no longer the days of, how do I spell programming? Right? And you don't need a computer science degree to do some of this stuff. So allow them to take on some responsibility. Teach them, coach them, give them the guardrails, help keep them safe, but let them go at the speed they need to go. And I think that's where a platform in general, those capabilities are enabling us to do that at a much different way than we could 10, 15 years ago.
I love that. Thank you so much, Terry. That's a great way to end. I think in addition to be a good partner, find a good partner. That's what I would add. Make sure the partner isn't one that can do everything great. Find your niche partners that are really good at delivering on the needs of your organization, because sometimes there's easier paths than others, but it's very valuable to have a great partner. So for anyone else, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Just to add to that conversation about using ServiceNow as a platform, not just one or two or multiple products. So just right now, my focus is on SPM, more on the project program front. So my question is about how you can help drive an innovation from one product to the rest of the platform. For example, right now I'm managing different facility moves that means like consolidated market offices into one or move from point A to point B. Then sometimes I got this idea, like if I'm doing this through SPM, like creating tasks, introducing a dashboard, am I missing out the rest of the platform's existing capability? For example, I identify, there are like facilities, directory, or addresses I should be getting from somebody else.
Right.
Versus in creating in my SPM. That's one example. Another example is like I have those travel requests. I'm actually creating like 5 SPM tasks to automate, quote unquote.
We would love to spend time with you. Yeah, we would love to spend time with you. Yes. So our session is over. I don't want to keep anyone.
Yeah.
We're the last session of the day.
Yeah.